Today we're going to do a little bit of hip mobility. So I have some yoga blocks, and before you sort of go, hey, who has 4 yoga blocks just sitting around? You don't need 4 yoga blocks necessarily. You might be okay with 3 or 2. I'm starting with 4 because I want to assume that this is going to be where a lot of people are at in terms of hip mobility, who would click on this and be like, hey, I want to increase my hip mobility. So you could use a stool. So each of these blocks is 3 inches, and I have 4 of them. So you could look at something that's about 1 foot high. You could use books, you could use a step stool or anything like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to stack our blocks so that they are nice and sturdy. And so a lot of people look at this and be like, oh, it's really tippy, I'm afraid I'm going to fall down. And so we don't want that. We want you to feel very secure. So what I would suggest is standing next to your blocks with 1 foot off to the side and the other one around the front. And then you want to sit sort of while you hold your blocks, okay? So you kind of just reach down, just hold, steady them, and you sit down. And what you want to sort of aim for is that you have all of this side of your bottom on the blocks. And if you can feel maybe like there's a little bony, like sit bone in there, you want to have the other leg so that that part of your bottom is slightly off the block, so that you don't want to have both sides of your bottom on the block. So then from here, you can really just sort of start to explore how your hips feel in this position. Some people will have their foot off to the side. So if that's your case, I'd encourage you to sort of walk that foot up and to see if you can create this sort of line between your knee and your foot, and then see how your hip feels kind of moving back and forth like this, okay? The other leg out here, you'll notice that my foot is flat, sort of in a kind of wide sort of stance, and that opposed to this only gives me my tippy toes, okay? Very smaller base of support. So I'm gonna kind of bring my foot out here. I can bring it in front, wherever you sort of feel like that's kind of gonna give you lots of stability. So we're gonna work on the front leg. So the front leg, we can kind of work it back and forth, and that might be where you are at in terms of just sort of playing with that mobility. You can sit up straight, you can tilt forward, you can sit up, turn to the side, things like that. You can change this foot position so it's a little bit farther forward. If you're feeling nice and steady, you could even slide that foot forward. It's kind of out of the view of my camera here, but my leg is straighter, okay? Where I'm feeling maybe a little bit of a tension, resistance, maybe a stretch in the back here, I can pull my toes up, my foot up, sit up tall. I can kind of tilt towards that foot, come back, or I can bend that knee, bring my foot back up. So that's some things I can work on this leg. On this leg here, I can work on bringing that leg in and out. So again, this is my sort of sturdy, supportive leg right now. Whereas before, this was my sturdy leg, and we're moving the front one. So this one has become my sturdy leg. This one I can practice bringing my hip in or pushing my hip out. So that might be where you're at, and you can play with kind of that position. You can sit up tall, you can tilt forward, so you can play with that a little bit. The next thing you can do here is you can bring this knee down towards the floor. So if you want to hold on to something, you want to hold on to your blocks, you want to put your hands on the floor, if you feel like you need more steadiness, what we're going to do is work on bringing this leg down so that it's down beside me. I'm going to sit up nice and tall. So from here, I can bring my knee forward, or I can bring my knee backwards. But you can see my leg is sort of tipped off to the side. That might give you a stretch in through here. You can sit up nice and tall, kind of push that hip forward, you can bring it back, that type of thing. You can practice with the position of your foot here. You can swing it in. You can see it kind of coming behind me here or out to the side. If you have mobility to kind of get that leg a little bit closer and farther back, that would be the next progression. So you can create sort of this type of position, okay? So from the side, this is very much like a front lunge, okay? So I'm lunging towards the front. My knee is back behind me. My foot is resting in behind. So here, if you have this type of mobility, you can work on bringing your legs closer and sitting up a little bit taller as opposed to leaning forward. So if leaning forward here or on the floor gives you that ability to put that back leg farther, then you can work on that. And sort of your practice might be sort of gradually coming up, coming up, coming up. And so all of these are options to sort of use a stool, a step, the corner of a coffee table, or if you happen to be lucky like me and have 4 yoga blocks nearby. Now, if you go through all of these sort of options and you're really finding there's not a lot to work on here, I'm not feeling any resistance, not feeling stretches in this position, then you could sort of start working with 3 blocks. Now, people who feel comfortable on 3 or 4 blocks could probably work with 2 blocks. However, you're going to find you're going to not have as much room to kind of play with some of these hip positions before you get in a position that you might feel very stuck. So that's why I encourage people to start up quite high and sort of work through some of those sticky spots and get lower and lower. So as you come lower, you might notice things like, you're kind of off to the side. What you want to sort of work on is sort of creating this straight up and down position from your seat all the way up through without having the ribs bend to the side if possible. So if you're finding it hard to sort of stay upright, then you probably need a little bit more height underneath your bottom. So I hope this has helped today. Give it a try. Let me know what you think.